Well, MicroGiants, thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit about social media today. We're going to get right to the subject. Social media is something that showed up around 2000. There were some people who say that there are a couple of experimental things that back prior to 2097 and so forth. But for the most part, I think MySpace came online in 2022, 23, Facebook in 20, or not 20, but 0, 02, 03, and Facebook was 04, I think. And so we've had about 20 years of social media. And during much of that time, we found that in Red Fusion, we found that not much was very beneficial there. You know, other media, the website, SEO, email, in terms of digital stuff, everything else was more effective than social media, and companies had gone like over the edge, hiring people to do social media, and not much was happening. But that's kind of changing a little bit. The activity has really kind of changed a little bit. I did just a little bit of work, not too. No, I did hardly any work. I just asked AI to tell me a little bit about what's going on recently. And what AI is saying is social media advertising has a higher conversion rate, 1.08%, than display advertising at 0.77, and email marketing at 0.22. Higher engagements rates with an average of 0.58 for social media ads compared to 0.05 for display ads. They don't break out short reels, and that John is going to talk about a little bit, but I believe from other things that I've read that that's doing a whole lot more. So social media is really starting to work more. And while we dissuaded clients years ago from spending too much time on social media, not to not do it, but just not to hire someone to do that full time, it looks as though it's really coming into its own. Don't know where it's going to go. You all may have some comments on that. But for right now, there is this hot new area of shorts that seems to be working pretty well. So John is John Burgess. Besides being my son, he was an original founder for Red Fusion Media, which, John, I can't believe it, but I was just putting the years together. Red Fusion is 25 years old this year. Of course, it's just a little hulk of what it used to be in terms of having a lot of employees and webmasters and designers and that sort of thing. But the only reason I bring it up is just to say that we've been watching this for 25 years. And John was there the whole way. John really led all of our digital efforts in terms of learning what worked, what didn't work, discovering how SEO worked, had a lot of success in SEO in those early years. We had a lot of clients that did very, very well. Because John got really good at that. We also did email advertising from time to time based on needs, et cetera. And then we did do some social media, but we found it to not be very effective. So we didn't spend a lot of time on it. But as I mentioned, that's all changing. So John has lots and lots of experience in this area. So John, fill us in on what you're doing right now that's fun and interesting, and give us an overview of what's happening today as opposed to yesterday.
Well, I was thinking, I had the pleasure of judging a contest over the weekend for a bunch of colleges, and one of them was UCLA, one was UCSD, another was Chapman. There's about 7 of them. And every year they do this competition for the American Advertising Federation on pitching an idea. And they are sponsored by the sponsor and say, we want all these colleges in the US to really give us a full pitch book, a full pitch deck, and tell us how we need to change our brand. And it was interesting because it was a #1 brand in the world. And you go, why do they need help? And it was because they're missing the younger ages. And the 18 to 35-year-olds, and kind of in that range, are facing towards social media way more than the rest of us. And so I think if I go back to, I Googled it right now, a paper I wrote in 2014, it was actually a little bit before that. I actually said Facebook for brands was dead. And what they had done early, if you guys remember, early Facebook kind of let you have free brand pages, and you got a lot of traffic, and so every business in the world hopped onto Facebook hoping they get some money. And then right about that window, 2013 to 14, so 10 years ago, they started turning the spigot to, well, no, you need to pay us for that. And so that was going from the free into the paid. And I had learned that because I was at another American Advertising Federation convention where I heard the head of Coke. She was talking about how much money they were going to put into Facebook, and then the head of Facebook sales saying how they're going to work with Coke to make this really cool program. The only interesting part about that at the time was that it was, if you remember, it was the campaign that had your name on the Coke. So you'd go to the store and it would say John. You might get lucky if it said Edgar. And so my son was going around looking for Ryan the whole time. He's looking for the Ryan Coke. And it was really a brand taking their brand off of the Coke and putting your name on to kind of tie you to the brand. So it was a physical thing. And Facebook then really did well because you had real people putting real information onto it. And here's my experience with this brand of Coke that has my name, John, on it. And so it was a really good case study in what you would call activations, I think is the word that everybody likes to use now. And so back to this last weekend, the brand was Tide. And Tide has been the #1 brand in washing your clothes since 1949. They are by far and above they're better. None of the kids thought about cutting price. That was not on their docket. But everyone said the very first thing when they interviewed all the kids in college and young adults starting to clean their clothes, it was price. Tide's too expensive. Well, Tide doesn't think they're too expensive, and nobody even thought about price. And what they said was, well, we think there's something wrong with America because everybody was taught one time how to do your laundry, and you've done it ever since. So like your mom taught you how to do laundry, and you do it forever that way because mom told you how. And so I literally came back and I switched my laundry machine because it turns out you should never, ever use hot water. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was taught to use hot water on the light colors and to cool it down for dark colors. But Tide was saying, well, no, ours is formulated for only cold. So I think the interesting part about the social media pitch there was most of what these kids proposed was very social media. P&G, which owns Tide, I think on one of the slides I saw, still puts about 70% of their dollars into TV advertising. So the college kids were like, this is a problem with price and it's a problem with not knowing. So the price can be offset by using cold water. And they figured it out. I think one school came with $150 a year you'd save having cold water. Another said $160. So let's just say about that, $150 saved. Well, that probably is the offset between the cheap brand and then the Tide brand. So they kind of got through that by just saying turning it to cold is going to save you a lot of money. But everything else went back towards social media. A lot of Instagram, a lot of opportunities to activate is what they call them. So they would propose that you'd have a booth at Coachella. At the booth at Coachella, you're going to have some swag, like some Tide water bottles and swag, and you're going to save $150 by just going to cold. And so all of their taglines were, the cold wave, it's the coldest, things like that. So you're trying to get people's brain to switch habits into a more equitable, or I guess a more, a cheaper way for you to spend your money on your clothes. And it was a really great campaign. We had one of the representatives from P&G there talking about it, and he was just blown away by what some of these kids were saying. And it goes back.
Were they blown away in a good way or a bad way?
In a good way, because this guy worked for the internal ad agency for P&G, who was there, and they still have big budgets for big things, Super Bowl ads and all that. And so he was a little taken aback that they wanted so many of these little specialized things. One of them was like a playlist on Pandora or on Spotify that would be a cold playlist. And so they, all of these little triggers to remind yourself, oh yeah, it's cold, it's cold, it's cold. So the moral of the story, I think in my mind, was social media still really only works well if it's somebody telling you something of value, and it's generally somebody you trust. And so the idea of activation is that John says this was a great idea and I go and post it. And some of my friends are like, oh, I've thought about that. Or, oh, you didn't know that? Your mom didn't tell you that it was get rid of the hot water. And so I think that social media today is a lot about the activation of either a very good short or video at the right time and place. And since, saying that Facebook is dead, I actually got off Facebook for 5 years and just got back on it. And I'll tell you what, it's all ads. It's terrible. I haven't
Yeah.
clicked an ad. I hate it. I go in there, I'm looking for Edgar's new kid. Can't find Edgar's new kid. I just get ads for teeny houses or the container houses. So that's all I get. It's like nonstop container houses. And I'm like, this is interesting, but I'm not here for that. I'd like to see what my
Yeah.
friends are doing.
And I just get incontinent ads all the time.
Well, then it's well targeted.
Yeah, right.
And so what really resonates, I spend my time on Twitter, and I'm on Twitter because I think I can get the news that I want there. And so I've curated my news in a way that makes some sense. And the algorithms are pretty good about giving me some other suggestions. What I really like on, say, Twitter is that, I have some chickens and I have my eggs, and then I'm following some people with eggs, and I'm learning a little bit more about how to be a hobby farmer. And so those are the little things that are pretty interesting. And that's the only time I get to the point where I may buy something, because now I'm like, oh, wow, I saw that this guy is doing A, B, and C for his chickens. I'm going to click and go see what that is. And those true life conversations that then lead to a brand are where I think social media is really strong. The data for younger kids, especially on TikTok, is that, they are just sucked into some of this stuff. I see it with my kids that they'll get their head into something. They'll start doing research among those categories within TikTok, within Instagram mostly. Those are the two that the younger kids are on. And they'll be supported by something along the way to say, this is what you were looking for. And then they go buy it, whatever it is. My older son is kind of getting into golf. And so he's watching all these golfers and little tips and tricks they have. And all of a sudden he's got a new, a putting grip that he gets through the mail that is a little fatter. And so I think the social media is really still best used when it is a real person telling a real story that then leads you to a solution. The other thing that works really well still is how-tos, and YouTube is great at how-tos. The students that were doing the Tide commercials were looking at the how-tos as a real way to, how do you teach somebody how to do their laundry? They thought it was two ways. It was the mom, or as they get to college one day and they're like in that room where it has all the washers and dryers, and they're like, oh, how do you do it? And they're asking a friend. And once you learn it, you almost never ask again, because it's like that base on the totem pole of knowledge that you're like, I'm never going to ask anybody any questions until you accidentally like melt your reds into your whites, right? So that's where I think social media is kind of today. It's kind of gone full circle from too much, not well enough curated. The algorithms probably hadn't caught up to, if there's quality content, it really is a great place to be. And then it's, as a brand, if I'm the brand, how do I engage with my possible customers in a very non-advertising way, but more of a leading them to the solution way? And it can be more powerful, like you said, Ron, than branded ads. The click-through rates are probably a lot higher. There's a certain innate, especially 35 and younger, both the X, sorry, I'm an X, but the Ys and Zs, once they've picked a brand, they're brand acolytes, and it's really hard for them to change. So they really do trust their brands in those marketplaces. So if you're doing your best to be in social media, you have to be authentic. You have to be the person in there that's providing something bonus, something that, a little extra, giving a lot of high fives, or as I always told everybody, pat somebody on the back on social media, say, hey, great job. So with Edgar, it's kind of like, wow, that was some great ice cream, Edgar. I'm going to tell a friend, those sorts of things. And then Edgar has the ability to say, thanks a lot. Next time you come back, we'll give you the secret flavor. Just say, the secret word. Those kind of things where you start to build a little bit of an ecosystem. That is what social media should be, about sharing social experiences.
Yeah. Very interesting. Edgar, any comments on that? I know you're doing some social media now.
I started a year and a half ago. I tried to do a brand, which was Red Local 360.
Right.
That it was, in my opinion, it was successful what it was supposed to do, but not something I wanted to do as a business.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm left over with about 5 clients still. That we did the approach I took was what social media was 3 years ago to today. It has changed a lot, but the idea that I had didn't really, I don't think it affected. Um, but I don't think social media is the same what it was 3 years ago when it comes to the shorts.
Mm.
Almost felt like the market got saturated so fast, so quickly that now I feel that it's having a psychological effect on clients that their attention span has now dropped even further down than 15 seconds now. So, because there is one thing that I could say is one of the most famous social media guys out there is Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is now spending millions of dollars in a short of 15 seconds or less than a minute, when before that was a whole YouTube video. And that you could see the quality of the 15-second videos are being swallowed by the big guys so far. I've noticed everybody's trying to get at it at those 15 seconds, people's attention, 10, 30 seconds. I've seen Target step up their game so much on the 15-second reels on TikTok, which you can't even tell anymore if it's a human being, a relatable person, or it's a big company doing the video.
Yeah.
They've done so much. They did so good on making it seem like a what do you call it, a influencer, individual. It could be your
Yeah.
neighbor. Is they're no longer using the fancy models. It looks like a person is telling you something about, like, they're trying everything. And so when I realized, I was like, man, this is getting the short reel reminds me of Vegas. So I walk by Vegas, and I see the people just keep pressing the button, and just seeing things happening. And I almost feel like the path that I was going on was gonna be changing so quickly, so fast, that if I build a business in that route, I might just get caught up chasing the the rabbit down the hole, to a point where I'm like, this is not a sustainable business for me, and that's why I kind of deviated from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's
what I've learned
it's
though, uh-huh.
go ahead.
Oh, what I've learned though is the clients that I did keep with the strategy that I was using so far has been effective till this day. My goal was to find one video. I took the Corona model, the drink, the beer, where they spend in a very simple, addictive style type of commercial that so far, after almost, I think, 35 years, it's still, people know what it is. So I just copied them. It was the there's like a little whistle for Christmas that you have palms and they turned on. And
Yeah,
it's
that's a pretty classic one. Yeah, I remember it.
yeah, sorry. But the point is, what I tried was, can I send out a bunch of videos for a restaurant, shorts, find the one that got most attention, and build a video that's 15 seconds or less of that same exact formula that I took, which was 3 seconds, change a picture. Very first picture, just show it's the city they live in or nearby, so catch their attention. And they just cut it every 3 seconds, cut to a new scene, a picture, video, street, something that might remind me, hey, I know that street. Hey, I know that place. Hey, I know that exit in the freeway. And I did that. I put it on Facebook and Instagram because they were the cheapest. I give them $1 budget a day, and I blasted it on a 5 mile radius, nonstop, same video for the last 3 years. That video has been, well, 2 years now. I think I'll have to see, but Maria's Cafe, which you guys know,
Mhm.
has one of those videos running for almost a year and a half or 2 years, and it became viral. In my opinion, it became a viral local video. I use social media to push it, but now people are sharing it by themselves, commenting on it. I'm in the 100 comments, over 100 comments, over
Mhm.
40,000 views. A lot of
Wow.
people are engaging. And he tried everything. He paid a guy $1,000 a month. He was paying a bunch of money everywhere to try to figure it out how to make this work, right? Not him specifically, but other clients paid like $1,000 a month for a
Right.
social media marketing
Yeah,
guy.
that's pretty normal nowadays.
And they were doing these things. We're gonna do so many posts for you. We're gonna do all this. So they were looking at the quantity of posts, and I tried, let's go for the quality of the post, and then give all the money to Facebook to say, I want this video to be viral. And if I'll keep paying you monthly, I don't. And now we're noticing that the video's shown up 3 or 4 times to the same people so far.
Oh,
So it's the longer we kept that one video alive, now we're kind of like, oh man, I should have changed this. Like, we don't want to mess with it anymore. Like, just leave it because it's still working. It's still, people are still clicking, people start sharing, people start commenting. And I have 5 clients. And if you think about it, it's only costing me about 30, 40, 50 bucks a month to keep it alive.
Mhm.
To me, versus I'm handling for them. I'm charging a monthly fee to keep it alive for them. So it's the most successful route I found so far. To make 1 or 2 videos viral and put all your budget towards it. Once you find it, like, not waste your
Right.
money like on a huge production video and then all of a sudden it didn't do anything for you.
Right.
So
So how many did you say how many you put up to come up with one good one?
it was it was 10 at the time. It was about 15 clients, 20 clients at the same time.
Mhm.
But I was using their data to find out what song fit the best, what type of pictures, how quickly I changed them.
Oh,
So it
okay.
one template video that I use, meaning
Oh,
what type
okay.
of,
So you're talking about the template, not an exact, a particular ad.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
what worked was, don't show a picture more than 3 seconds.
Yeah.
The first picture has to show the street city logo, like an icon.
Yeah.
So I basically broke it down to like the most successful video, and I did the Ron thing, which pretty much look at every single piece of data, even if I'm not looking at it correctly. I'm assuming and hoping it, and that's not the wrong thing. That's the Edgar thing now. Assuming that this data might be the why is doing this. I thought it was doing it. I took a risk, put it up. Not too much of risk, just time and some maybe 30 bucks of
Yeah. Oh, right. Right.
money. And once it went viral, I noticed a trend. Even though I was promoting Mexican restaurants, not putting Mexican music worked. Putting techno music worked. And so clients were kind of like, hey, well, that doesn't fit my brand. I was like, but that's kind of what people are clicking on.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I put techno music, and the music matches the pictures when I do the changes. And I kept it 15 seconds shorter or shorter, because I was able to tell Facebook to show it wherever you want, every single platform you offer. 15 seconds and shorter, a vertical 9:16
Being
ratio.
part of our brand as well.
Oh, say that again.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, like, I've kind of found that, like, I want the music to be sort of consistent with what we're about. And we've argued on this, and it ends up being stuff that's, not maybe initially connected to what I'm doing, but they're trending, they're viral, and it helps, get eyes on posts. So I mean, I suppose
Yes.
I can't argue with results, but it does seem a little strange, doesn't it?
What I had to do is created a brand that highlights clients, not a brand that represents that brand. And that's why I had to create Red Local 360, so I can tell them, it's like, I don't care if you're Mexican restaurant, I use techno music because that's what Red Local 360 uses. And so that it almost like, hey, Red Local 360 will highlight your restaurant, and then I don't have to no longer mess with your brand. And if they agreed to that, then it was like, hey, almost like an influencer that came and highlighted you. That's kind of the whole purpose of what that was supposed to be.
Can I ask? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you could go ahead, John, but I was gonna say that of the stuff I'm doing, it really goes along with what you're seeing. You have to have quick changes of content, even faster than 3 seconds is what I found. Or you have to have other little elements popping up, whether it's the words popping up within the structure of the voiceover. The sound is really interesting, whether it's a ding or other things. I think the sound it's much more psychological about trying to get them to pay attention than it is for the Mexican restaurant, maybe the band that might actually play there all the time, the mariachi band. It's less about that. It's more about that psychological thing. So I find the same to be true. And I think to just quickly go back before we get back to JP, you said quality over quantity, and that's exactly what the algorithms were doing, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. They're looking for the length of the total amount watched. And the average duration is actually the one major thing to make anything go viral. So if you have, say, a 23-second video and they make it to 29 seconds, well, they've looped it and now have started watching it again. And I've attempted to make that happen more often by making the end cut scene the very same one as the beginning cut, so they don't quite notice until they're a little bit through.
Right.
And that's what helps with virality. And I think you're totally right. You have to try some different things. And And from a brand's perspective, it's a little off their brand because they're like, wait a second, I didn't, what's techno music doing here? And I tend to think that the other way to do it would be to have a real person in the restaurant eating their favorite thing and say, you know, I love the chili Riano. And they would do it however they would do it. And the brand itself would have nothing to say about it other than, well, our chili Riano got named at, you know, Maria's or something like that. And so to your point, it's kind of that creativeness is what's winning, and it has to be quality and time to you.
And that's what I realized, like, man, if I started this not to try to become an influencer, and that's what I want to kind of when became like I'm becoming the foodie guy. And I'm like, oh wait, no, it's not supposed to be like this. And so it turned into also the issue I had the most, which my kind of the thing that made me realize maybe I don't want to be part of this type of business, is how difficult it was to explain how effective this video was. Because just to the clients, I was like, even what I was charging was really low compared, but for them, the in absence of value, price is always an issue. I knew what they had. They had one of the most valuable things, and they still wanted to turn it off because they said, "Oh no, it's not working." I'm like, "You have no idea what you just done. You just shut yourself on the foot because this is the only marketing you had left, and you just said goodbye to the only marketing that you still have that's not a radio playing all the time." And even though I showed them the numbers, even though I showed them everything, to them it wasn't worth it because they didn't have there was no real way to prove to them that this had those views, the retention and all that in a 5 mile radius. People already knew your name. And so it's almost like the 6 degree of separation concept, where if you know one person that knows 44 people that you don't know, it spreads. That commercial, I happened to me where I'm driving by, I was like, oh wait, that's the place that I saw on Instagram. That's the place. I didn't realize it was here. And I will stop by, but I'm not going to go and tell the register, hey, I saw you on Instagram to stop by here. Well, sometimes you forgot where I saw it, but I remember that place. Was it Google? Was it Instagram? Was it a commercial? I just remember that place, and I remember why I saw it. And to them, they didn't understand that.
Yeah, that particular restaurant, you know, it's really not in a number one location. It's in a strip mall. They do have a sign, but they're quite a ways away from the cross streets. You can't really see it from there. You have to go there unless you happen to be going to any of the other stores that are in that particular mall. You would never know where they are. So branding and then them finally associating that with a location is a major deal, just to be able to accomplish that alone, and to be able to do that in a very, very concise geography is really something that small businesses have never, ever been able to do. This is, you know, without spending pretty good sized money. You know, they would have to go to the local newspaper, advertise to the entire town, in order to be able to try and get their name out. We know that's not all that effective. And so this, in terms of pinpoint, I think you're right. You really hit something good and strong. And it's kind of like, for that much money, for 30, 40 bucks a month, I mean, my goodness, I mean, why would you not continue to do that or even expand it? And
I was charging about $120 a month.
Okay,
I
that was
I didn't charge him to make a video. I didn't charge him to anything. I put all my effort up front. And I said, this video becomes viral, you continue to pay me a monthly fee, and I'll make my residual long term. And so that was kind of the business model that I took, and it worked out. If I continued doing it, I just felt like, man, I don't know if I want to keep doing this for. That could be other stuff that I could be more valuable and have less clients and make more money, type of thing.
Yeah.
But
I can see that. But the value, I think, for, say, people listening to this is that it can be done, and it can be very low cost, and it can be beneficial. The big issue is you have to pay attention to the data. You have to try it enough times, enough different variations, and be diligent, as you have, all of you have been, to really watch the numbers and see what works and what doesn't work. I mean, I think that's how you make this work. In all of the statistics that you read and you see, and you try and figure out what everybody is doing, people are not very good to focus on the kind of business that it is. You know, is it a one-time purchase? Is it an ongoing purchase? You know, is it a highly emotional Is it a transactional business? Is relational buy? There are so many different ways that you buy things, and you think about how you're going to buy things, that each one of those has to be taken into consideration in order to be able to put the most effective advertising together. The big guys, hire psychologists and marketing psychologists and neuro marketing people in order to be able to do all kinds of testing to see what works and what doesn't really work. But little guys can't really do that. Little guys can, spend some time doing this kind of thing, and when they find something that works, then that's really worthwhile. The problem is that so many will try something and it doesn't work the first time the way they think it should, and they sort of quit. That's, I think, where professionals come in, is that professionals are understanding it does take an effort, and you have to be able to put it together from a creative perspective, as well as the analytical side, in order to find out which of the creative really worked, et cetera. So it's not really easy from that standpoint, but boy, if you can get it right, it can be really good.
Yeah, and I believe that's the biggest issue I had, is they see successful Instagram accounts from organic growth, and they imagine themselves being like that one person, and they want to hire somebody to magically make them viral and successful and famous, right? Organically, without having to spend any money.
Right.
That's the part that they believe is social media, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what, yeah. When it's really difficult, well, maybe it's getting easier. It's been almost 2 years that I just kind of abandoned that project. But what I'm afraid of is that what I've learned from my video, it might be obsolete already, meaning that it happened so many times that people are just kind of sick of it. So now we need to get a new song, a new method, and so it might just take something that was consistently changing just to keep up with what's going on.
Well, I think that was the kind of my next question is, we've been doing a campaign for the dairy that has been rotating through about two or three of them. They're not necessarily the best ones. They're just pretty basic, but we've been trying them in different geographies. And this is in a big metro area. So, a town, a little burg, et cetera. And so far, and it's too early to tell because we don't have enough data yet, but so far it looks as though we're getting a pop the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then it's falling after that. So we're getting activity, some views, et cetera. But then once they've seen it, they're just scrolling right past because they're not interested anymore. So I'm wondering, and I sort of put this question to the group, is that, does it get stale, and do you have to always be introducing new creative in order to be able to keep these things going?
I want to add something to that, is because there's just so many people that can see those commercials. I've noticed that when I was looking at this, and this is it, it's like it was not time to put the plug yet, because Facebook had not shown it to all their users yet, I guess I could say, because I didn't pay them enough money.
Yeah.
Says I'm only gonna show him to, I'm gonna make up numbers. Let's say 5% of the people that I can show it to, because you didn't pay me enough. But because you're paying me in a monthly fee every single month consistently, I don't want you to leave me. So I'm only gonna give you enough where you are happy, and I'll continue showing it to new people. So I did notice that they've been keeping me happy for almost 1 year, 2 years now, let's just say.
Yeah.
New views, consistent views, and all that, because I'm consistently paying them. But if I had spent a lot of money up front and they would have shown to all the people, I might have squeezed out all the people that I could show that commercial to.
Yeah.
One shot. So I've noticed that by paying them a little bit with a lot of commercials, at the time I had like probably $1,000 going out a month because I had a bunch of people. I've noticed that and it was a consistent, like, hey, I'm gonna show you to new people now. I'm gonna show it to new people now. I'm gonna show it to new people now. And it started kind of like to keep up. I haven't kept up with it now, so I don't know if it's dropped significantly, but being able to successfully show it to new audiences, because the budget wasn't that big, and it consistent every month, they'll give me a new bunch of people that they never saw it before, and interactions are still good, and everything's still pretty healthy. Enough where, like, don't shut it off yet. If you shut it off, you're letting go of that consistency. So they also play psychology games on me, but they are to the point where, like, it's not time to shut off that commercial yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it might be. Oh, go ahead.
I guess I have a question sort of dovetailing off of Ron's, and that is just sort of being in a position where I'm thinking about social media and kind of trying to take my brand towards a more direct model, at least directly engaging with customers. We've been thinking about building our presence, and so far, I feel like followers, that's a number that the average business owner is going to want to hold on to, is like, it's that physical representation of how recognized you are. And then, of course, there's engagement, which is maybe not what's at front of people's minds, but when they're thinking about social media, but the engagement piece is super important, because you can have all the followers in the world, but are you going to be able to grow those followers or actually make sales if you're producing stuff that nobody's engaging with? And then I guess sort of the last thing is like where the funnel ends up connecting to revenues, like the return on ad spend. And so I guess I'm just kind of curious, over the time you ran this particular model, Edgar, I mean, like, were you able to see some of the data results like that from this particular
Yeah.
strategy, that your customers had an increase in engagement, an increase in followers, and
So I
converted
put
to
a
return? Or
my end of the return was if I can take them off of Facebook into a landing page with trackers to find out how long they scrolled on the page and what button they clicked on, and see if I convince them to click on the Google Maps button. The landing page was kind of a trap with every button, every link, every picture just went to Google. And so using that, I realized that I was successfully able to get them off of Facebook into a landing page. The landing page was not their website, it was a Red Local 360 page. And if I was trying to sell anything else, I could have engaged with them right there and then. But at this point, all I wanted to know is, did I successfully convince them to click on learn more? And I did. It was a lot of people. I don't have the data in front of me, but it was a lot of people that I convinced to click on learn more. And the additional data that I realized is like, man, this amount of people that I convinced to click on the button, right? Compared to how much we spent for it, it's pretty incredible, right? It was one of those things. It's easy because it's food, I think, but if you're trying to sell a product like a lab, I don't know, something else, it might be a little more difficult. So I don't want to speak for any other product other than maybe restaurants with the experience and the success that I had. But when you're trying to sell something that is more complex, or B2B, business to business, or anything that is more like, I'm looking for a new laptop and I just found the new Asus laptop that has 2 screens with a removable keypad. I've been doing research on YouTube probably for the last 4 days, and I've been sold 8 times already by YouTubers by their education, but I'm still watching their videos again and again and again, because I'm that's a different type of marketing. I'm not gonna fall victim to a commercial of 15 seconds probably. And maybe I did it because I remember seeing this laptop somewhere that had 2 screens, and I don't remember where I saw it. It might have been a commercial from Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, but then made me realize that's the laptop that I want. And then I went into a bunch of research. So whoever did the ad that showed me that laptop that exists, I don't know who it was. It must have been I don't know. I'll be honest, I forgot where I saw it, but I saw it and I went to do my research on Google, went to YouTube, and I fell in love with it. So I'm in the process of
Yeah.
buying a laptop.
Well, that
So
is a huge problem, is attribution, because and I'm talking about attribution of a particular click or of a particular view to the sale as a whole, and it gets to be a highly complex. Working on that right now with another MicroGiant who sells games, and we're working with an individual who is going to try and figure out how to do that attribution. But because it's a simple deal, whoever gets to the page and actually buys it, we're going to just give the credit based on that particular link. But in truth, you could especially have multifaceted campaigns. You're influencing people in a lot of different ways, and you don't know really how that's done. So it's very, very difficult to be able to measure that. In the case that I just mentioned with the dairy, we always make the comparison based on, well, what is our cost of the sale in other modes? So in this particular case, we know that the average cost of a sale is about $120. So $120, the opposite, the primary thing that happens there is that they go to the door and they try and sell, because this is a geographic product, they try and sell delivery. And we know that X number of doors have to be knocked on, X number of presentations made, X number of people buy. And we know that based on the demographics and psychographics of the individual people, that if you're in the right place at the right time, you're going to have your numbers go up. You're going to have fewer conversations that are productive, and you're going to spend your time better. So we have a benchmark. So what we're concerned about is, how do we get them to the sign-up page online for less than $120? That's our benchmark. And so we don't have really solid numbers as to how many people wander in the front door instead of the back door that we've set up on the landing page. We don't really know how that's working, and how many people come in there. But we do know that for those who go directly, we've got a number which is not even close to that. So, as long as we're being able to get clicks to our page at this point, as we're still in an experimental mode, in the $15 or $20 range, we're pretty happy to keep on testing this, because we're getting a lot of traffic at a lot less money than we are sort of the old-fashioned way. Having said that, the type of product that you're selling is so critical. I mean, if somebody has been able to do, say, pretty well, and say they've got a 3% sales cost, maybe we'll just say laptops. I don't have any idea about what the cost is in that industry for those kind of products. But if it was 3% because they do massive advertising and they're selling, 3 or 4 or 500,000 a day or whatever that is, if that number is really that small, then trying to break through on social media is going to be a very difficult prospect. But if you're trying to sell a car where the average cost, might be 5% of $50,000, now you're talking about something where social media might end up being very, very effective, even if the individual, say, click rate is $20, $30, $40. So that's really an important aspect. And the same thing works when you're buying, AdWords and so forth. What's your cost per click, and how does that compare to your selling cost? Because it's really the lowest selling cost you're trying to achieve. It's not really all the other hype. It's not, well, how many views did I get, and what was my reach, and all of these other numbers, which are all important, but it really has to do with what is the ultimate cost of the final close. Because if I can save money doing that, I'm going to be able to lower my costs, be more competitive, et cetera. So it's not an easy thing to solve. So we're kind of, I think, coming to an end. John Burgess, do you have some wrap-up comments to make here?
I was going to add to JP's sort of question. I tend to think there's still only 2 ways to do it, and that is that you have a pay-per-click model, whether that's in a social media or Google, and then you have the branding side of it. So if you're doing Facebook, trying to go viral, that's sort of a branding function, and you have to have just sort of that budget that's really hard to track. Newer e-commerce platforms will do a great job of tracking a lot of that nowadays, but it's still a little bit that way. The only other thing I kind of have always thought about is, once Google AdWords came around, you got your exact click for sale. And that became really important because you can do that against anything at this point. So you can take your click cost and compare it to any other advertising cost per thousand, cost per, click, cost per whatever, and figure out where your best deals are coming. I'd argue, even in Ron mentioned the dairies model, I think that their social media has been very unsuccessful over the years, because they have less people on their social media than they have customers. And I tend to think, after doing it for 20 years or something, they should have many times more. And had it done very well, you would end up with a lot of people going, man, next time I come to town, I'm going to figure out how to get some dairy. And so it is a weird sort of thing. And those companies that live and die on social media are still living and dying there. And it's not necessarily that they know they're winning or not. It's a challenge. So kind of go back to the base number of a pay-per-click, and then you can apply that to other social media things.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole thing really boils down to, it's a big math problem. And if you don't like the analytical stuff, as many social media quote experts don't. They might throw you the reports, but unless they really understand the whole number part of the marketing issue, it's really difficult to be able to tell what to do. So the analyticals is really the important part here. So, well, good discussion. Appreciate all of you showing up for this, and I know it's something that is continuing to grow, and we know that it's growing. We don't know if the effectiveness is growing, and the only way we can do that is really keep our eye on the individual market and the individual product, and make sure that it still works for you. So I guess we'll leave with that. Thank you all so much for coming and joining in this particular topic. Appreciate that very much.